The autumn air carried a crisp bite as Daniel unlocked the door to the house he once called home. The walls still held echoes of laughter, whispers of promises now broken. The faint scent of Olivia's favorite jasmine candle lingered, an unintentional mockery of the warmth that had long since faded. She had left 3 days ago, her departure marked not by tears or fights, but with cold precision. "I've found my happily ever after," Olivia had declared, her eyes gleaming with a smug satisfaction that Daniel would never forget. She didn't beg, didn't explain. She packed her bags, left the key on the polished oak table, and vanished into a new life with Mark, her so-called upgrade. But Daniel wasn't the kind of man to shatter plates or drown in whiskey. His revenge would be colder, calculated, and far more devastating. It started with the phone bill. A simple oversight on Olivia's part. She hadn't bothered to change the account, assuming Daniel would quietly manage the details like he always had. But the records told a story Olivia never intended him to read. Late-night calls, texts disguised as work emergencies, and hotel receipts tucked neatly into digital statements. There it was. Her affair laid bare in data, void of emotion but burning with betrayal. Daniel didn't confront her. He didn't demand answers or apologies. Instead, he became a ghost in their narrative, silently observing, gathering, and planning. Over the next few weeks, he collected evidence like a meticulous archaeologist uncovering ruins. Photos of Olivia and Mark entwined at discreet cafes, emails brimming with promises of a future built on deceit, and financial transactions that hinted at something more. Mark's company was involved in practices that wouldn't sit well with corporate ethics committees. Daniel's expression remained unreadable even as his heart seethed with quiet rage. Every click of his camera, every screenshot saved was a step toward an endgame Olivia and Mark couldn't foresee. They thought they had won, basking in the illusion of freedom and superiority. But Daniel wasn't broken. He was patient. By the time he drafted an anonymous email to Mark's wife, attaching the damning proof, Daniel felt no remorse, only clarity. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about justice. Not the kind served in courtrooms, but the kind that crept into lives like a shadow, unraveling everything from the inside out. And Daniel was just getting started. Weeks passed with Daniel maintaining the facade of indifference. To Olivia and Mark, he was nothing more than the discarded husband, licking his wounds in silence. But beneath his composed exterior, Daniel wove a web of precision, each thread anchored to the evidence he had meticulously gathered. He began with Mark's wife, Vanessa, a woman who had unknowingly been living in the same shadow of betrayal. Daniel crafted the email with surgical care, avoiding emotional outbursts and focusing solely on facts. The subject line was simple: "You deserve to know." Attached were photographs, screenshots of explicit messages, and detailed timelines. No embellishments, no accusations, just the raw truth, undeniable and corrosive. Within hours of sending the email, Daniel's phone buzzed with a private number. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The voicemail, filled with Vanessa's choked sobs and fragmented questions, was confirmation enough. The first domino had tipped. While Vanessa grappled with the shattering of her reality, Daniel turned his attention to Mark's professional life. A quick search revealed that Mark's company had a strict policy against workplace relationships, especially those involving subordinates. Daniel wasn't sure if Olivia fell under that category, but it didn't matter. The suggestion alone would be enough to spark an investigation. Using an encrypted account, Daniel submitted an anonymous tip to the company's HR department. He included copies of emails exchanged during work hours, photos of Olivia and Mark entering hotels while claiming to attend client meetings, and highlighted potential misuse of company funds, dinners and trips charged to business accounts under vague descriptions. The evidence was damning. But Daniel wasn't done. Before the dust could settle, he reached out to a journalist from a business ethics blog known for exposing corporate scandals. He framed it as an anonymous source reporting unethical behavior at a high-profile firm. The journalist, intrigued by the juicy lead, assured discretion and promised to dig deeper. Meanwhile, Daniel played the part of the silent ex-husband perfectly. He avoided mutual friends, ignored Olivia's sporadic smug social media posts flaunting her new life, and never reacted publicly. This was his strength, letting them believe they had won while the ground crumbled beneath them. A week later, the unraveling began. Mark's wife filed for divorce, her lawyers moving swiftly to freeze joint accounts. Word spread through their social circles, whispers growing louder with every passing day. Vanessa wasn't quiet about the betrayal. She weaponized her grief, ensuring everyone knew about Olivia and Mark's affair. Their perfect image splintered, replaced by scandal and disgrace. At the same time, Mark's company launched an internal investigation. HR interviews followed, emails were scrutinized, and within days, Mark was suspended pending a formal review. The Business Ethics blog published an exposé, naming no names but describing the situation with enough detail that anyone familiar with Mark's firm connected the dots. Olivia's phone calls to Daniel went unanswered. She left voicemails dripping with false concern, thinly veiled attempts to gauge if he was involved. Daniel listened to each message with a detached satisfaction. They had set the fire. He was just making sure it burned. The cracks in Olivia and Mark's perfect world widened swiftly, turning into chasms that swallowed the life they had built on deception. Daniel watched from a distance, a silent architect of their downfall, his emotions cold and sharp, like glass underfoot. Mark's career unraveled first. The internal investigation at his company moved faster than Daniel had anticipated. It wasn't just the affair that violated corporate policies, it was the misuse of company resources, the questionable expense reports, and the thinly veiled favoritism in project allocations. Mark had grown too arrogant, believing his charm and position would shield him. But corporate ethics don't bend for charisma. They buckle under proof. Within 2 weeks, Mark's suspension became termination. No severance, no graceful exit. His name was quietly blacklisted in industry circles, thanks to the blog exposé gaining traction. Potential employers weren't interested in someone whose reputation was tainted by scandal. The professional empire Mark had flaunted in Olivia's face crumbled into dust. Olivia's downfall was less public, but far more personal. Without Mark's income, the lifestyle she'd chased slipped through her fingers. The luxury apartment, the high-end dinners, the designer clothes, they were all paid for with money that no longer existed. She tried to maintain appearances, posting filtered photos and crafted captions about new beginnings, but behind closed doors, reality gnawed at her like a persistent shadow. Her social circle, once buzzing with brunches and superficial admiration, grew cold. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the drama. The same people who had envied her now whispered behind her back. But Daniel's masterstroke was yet to come. Long before Olivia left, Daniel had quietly secured their financial assets. He'd moved investments, closed joint accounts, and rerouted funds, all legally, all meticulously documented. When Olivia finally filed for divorce, expecting a generous settlement, she was met with brutal clarity. There was nothing left for her to claim, no hidden savings, no shared accounts, just a mountain of legal paperwork confirming what Daniel had already orchestrated. Olivia's smug confidence shattered in the sterile light of the courtroom. She had traded stability for excitement, love for lust, and security for fleeting thrills. Now she stood before a judge, realizing she was entitled to nothing. No alimony, no property, just the bitter taste of consequences. Mark, already drowning in debt and legal troubles from his divorce with Vanessa, couldn't save her. Their relationship, once fueled by passion and secrecy, grew toxic under the weight of failure. Resentment replaced romance. Arguments erupted over unpaid bills and broken promises. They blamed each other, clawing at the ruins of what they thought was love. Daniel never gloated. He never confronted them, never sent messages or made dramatic declarations. His victory wasn't loud, it was quiet, precise, and absolute. One evening, as he sipped a glass of whiskey in his new apartment, one they'd never seen, in a life they no longer touched, Daniel felt it. Not joy, not revenge, but peace. The storm had passed, and he was still standing. Olivia's life became a fragile house of cards, teetering with every passing day. The woman who once strutted with arrogance now navigated her days like a shadow of her former self, burdened by debt, social isolation, and a relationship with Mark that had soured beyond repair. She had believed she'd upgraded, traded Daniel's quiet stability for Mark's thrilling chaos. But thrill doesn't pay bills, and chaos doesn't build a future. Mark's situation was no better. Unemployed, entangled in legal battles with his ex-wife Vanessa, and drowning in debt from a lavish lifestyle he could no longer afford, his charm faded as quickly as his bank account. The pressure revealed the cracks in his confident facade. He grew irritable, reckless, and cruel, lashing out at Olivia, the very woman he claimed to have risked everything for. Their arguments spilled into public, heated and venomous, drawing the attention of neighbors and former friends, who delighted in watching their downfall. Meanwhile, Daniel thrived. With the distractions of his failed marriage behind him, he refocused on his career, securing a promotion that placed him in an executive role, ironically at a company where Mark had once applied. Daniel had quietly orchestrated it, not out of spite, but to prove a point. Success was the best revenge. He cultivated new friendships, built genuine connections, and rediscovered parts of himself that had been buried under years of emotional neglect. But Daniel's plan wasn't entirely complete. One final move remained, the act that would seal their fate, not with rage but with undeniable clarity. He attended a business gala, an event Olivia and Mark would have once dominated with smug charm. But this time Daniel was the man people noticed. Confident, composed, effortlessly respected. Dressed in a tailored suit, he moved through the crowd with ease, his presence magnetic without trying. And then he saw them. Olivia and Mark stood near the bar, their strained smiles barely masking the tension between them. Olivia's eyes met Daniel's across the room. For a brief moment her mask cracked. She didn't see the man she had left behind. She saw the man she'd underestimated. The man who now embodied everything she thought she deserved. Daniel didn't approach them. He didn't need to. His indifference was the sharpest blade. Instead, he engaged with influential guests, effortlessly charming CEOs and investors. The contrast was undeniable. While Olivia and Mark struggled to stay relevant, Daniel thrived, not out of revenge, but because he had let go of the dead weight they represented. Later that evening, Daniel stepped outside onto the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly before him. The cool night air filled his lungs, crisp and refreshing. Behind him, laughter and music continued, but he stood in silence, savoring the moment. His revenge had never been about destroying them. It was about freeing himself, and he had succeeded. Months passed, and the echoes of Daniel's calculated revenge faded into the background, replaced by the steady rhythm of a life rebuilt. He no longer woke with the bitter taste of betrayal in his mouth, or replayed the past like a broken record. Instead, his mornings began with purpose, not resentment. Yet the past has a way of circling back, not as a ghost to haunt, but as a reminder of how far one has come. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Daniel received an unexpected message, a simple text from an unknown number. "Can we talk? Olivia." For a moment, Daniel stared at the screen, his heart neither racing nor faltering. There was no anger, no satisfaction, just indifference. Curiosity perhaps, but nothing more. He debated ignoring it, letting her words dissolve into the void she now occupied in his life. But closure often wears an unexpected face, and Daniel, ever the strategist, understood the value of seeing things through to the end. They met at a small cafe tucked away from the busy streets, a place Daniel often visited for its tranquility. Ironic, considering the storm Olivia had once been in his life, she arrived looking nothing like the woman who had left him. The polished veneer was gone, replaced by visible stress lines, dull eyes, and an uncertainty that clung to her like a shadow. Her designer clothes didn't fit right anymore, not just in size, but in spirit. They were remnants of a life she could no longer afford, both financially and emotionally. Daniel, on the other hand, exuded effortless confidence. His tailored suit was sharp, but it was his demeanor that commanded the space. Calm, composed, and completely unaffected. Olivia sat down without waiting for an invitation, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "I didn't expect you to come." Daniel offered a polite smile. Curiosity got the better of me. She swallowed hard, her gaze flickering to the window as if searching for an escape. I wanted to talk. About everything." "Everything?" Daniel's voice was light, almost amused. "You'll have to be more specific." Her composure cracked. "I know what you did," she blurted, her voice a mixture of accusation and reluctant admiration. "You ruined us." Daniel leaned back, unfazed. "No, Olivia, you ruined you. I just let the truth catch up." Silence settled between them, thick and uncomfortable. Olivia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but Daniel felt nothing. Not pity, not regret, just clarity. "Really, I thought I was making the right choice," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Mark was exciting, different. I thought I deserved more." Daniel nodded slightly. "And how's that working out for you?" The question wasn't meant to wound, it was simply the truth laid bare. Olivia's face crumpled, the facade finally shattering. "He's gone. Left when things got hard. I lost everything, Daniel. My job, my friends, my dignity." Daniel listened, not out of cruelty, but because he knew she needed to hear herself say it, to confront the wreckage she had created. "Thought maybe," she hesitated, her fingers trembling, Maybe we could start over. The words hung in the air, absurd and fragile. Daniel smiled, not with malice but with genuine amusement. Start over? Olivia, I didn't spend all this time moving forward just to step back. She flinched, the rejection hitting harder than any argument they'd ever had. But Daniel wasn't angry. He was free. Standing up, he left a few bills on the table, more out of habit than necessity. Take care, Olivia. I hope you find what you're looking for. As he walked away, the weight he hadn't realized he still carried lifted completely. Olivia remained behind, a figure frozen in a past Daniel no longer belonged to. Outside, the city pulsed with life, indifferent to heartbreaks, betrayals, and failed dreams. Daniel inhaled deeply, the cool breeze filling his lungs with the promise of new beginnings. His story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming himself, and he had done exactly that.